Welcome to Winning Hand, the podcast about Marvel Champions, one card at a time. As always, I am your host, Boom Guy, and I'm here today with my trusty cohort, Lazy Titan.
How's it going?
But unfortunately, I'm not here with Kaeko. He has been abducted, and the villain that we have who has come on to replace him is the host of the Critical Encounters podcast, and his name is Verdaen.
Hi, how's it going?
Thanks for joining. So
Glad I could be here.
Yeah, we're also glad you could be here. I hope that Kaeko is safe in your lair and that he does what he needs to get back out again.
Yeah, we have put him to work, so he's busy cleaning up after some the Needhog and Garm. So it's a big job, so it's going to take him probably all week.
Good. Yeah, he's got a lot to do. Yeah. Keep him busy.
Take your time. We don't need him back.
Yeah, just soon. At some point. Yeah, so since you're on the show, Verdaen, we want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. So I've got a few quick questions to run through with you. And then if you just want to maybe give a quick plug for your podcast, tell us about your show. If anyone's listening to this and doesn't know the Critical Encounters podcast, highly recommended, but I will let Verdaen talk about it. So before we get to that, can you please tell us what was your journey with the game? When did you get into it? And so where did it start for you?
Yeah, so I played Lord of the Rings almost, the Lord of the Rings LCG from Fantasy Flight Games, probably right at the end of the course cycle is when I got into that. So I'd been an FFG follower for a while. I played some Arkham Horror. I have a bunch of that. And then I saw this Marvel game was coming out, and I thought, boy, I have too many games already. I want nothing to do with this game. And then it was out for a couple months. And I was like, well, I'll try it. So I bought it at some point. I don't know, like maybe Christmas time or something like that. And then I was hooked and off we go. The rest is history. So just been keeping up on everything with it.
We always ask people when they come on the show, what is their favorite hero and favorite aspect? But because of your very unique background, I also have to ask you, what's your favorite villain? So if you wouldn't mind giving us those.
Yeah, okay. So my favorite hero to watch lose is probably maybe say Iron Man, or I like seeing Cap get beat up. So Captain America or Iron Man losing, that's good. And then my favorite villain, I like to go, probably the one I play the most is maybe Crossbones. I find that's a fun one to like. I get a new deck, play against Crossbones, see if I can keep up with the speed that he has, and you can put in quite a few modular sets with him, so that can be pretty interesting.
I think Crossbones is my most played for sure. I love that he's
a favorite.
Yeah, he's my favorite. He's got 3 modular sets that you can mix in, so he's easy to kind of mix and match, and he's tough enough, but not too tough. So I think he's great for testing and just for having fun. And what about favorite aspect? Do you have a favorite aspect?
Yeah, I think it's Justice.
I
find that I like to I play a little control-y, so I often go Justice. I can't say I like Protection, because if anyone listens to our show, they know Mike's a Protection player, and we rag on him about that, even though I do like Protection, but I can't admit to it.
I won't tell
him. You're going to have to edit that one out. But
yeah, we'll cut that out.
Okay. I'm sure you will. Yeah, probably Justice and Protection behind it.
You're a good fit to balance this out here. Lazy Titan is the aggression player, and I'm definitely the protection guy.
Known aggression player.
Yeah. Well, it was nice to hear a little bit about you. Thanks for joining us. Mm-hmm. And everybody who's listening will definitely want to stay tuned till the end of the podcast, because we have a giveaway that we're going to announce as a part of having Verdaen on the show. So stay tuned to the end, and we'll announce the details on that. And before we go on, I'll just say, like I always do, if you like the podcast, if you're enjoying it, please consider giving us a rating and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us a lot get to the top of Apple's algorithm. So if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes just to leave a quick review, that would be awesome.
5 stars.
And always 5 stars, only 5 stars.
4.5 is acceptable, maybe.
It does make a big difference. You know, when we were starting out, those reviews pushed our show up. So
it's big.
Yeah, go out. You like the show, it only takes a couple minutes. Go do it. So.
Yeah, thank you. It's very quick. We've gotten a couple of good reviews recently, which is really awesome. So thanks, everybody. All right, so now we're going to talk about what we've been playing recently. And I'm going to ask Lazy Titan to go first and just talk us through what have you been playing recently.
Recently, I looked back at some of the spiders and I wanted to try some of them out. So I tried a protection deck with the spiders. My first iteration of the deck was with Miles because I do like Miles, and he's my personal favorite Spider-Man. But mechanically, he's not the best. He's okay. It worked well because the spiders are an incredible keyword, one of the best. So much synergy, so many cards you can draw. But then I tried it out in SPDR because drawing cards is even better. And that worked obviously better because I think SPDR is better than Miles. But it also allowed me to play the Miles Morales protection ally, who is really why I switched, because he's also really powerful. Gets you a stun and a confuse if you have 3 web warriors. That was my build, was just to play protection, play some Spider Tingle and all those cards, and also play as many web warriors as I possibly can. Played Silk, played Miles Morales, all the basic ones, and the amount of cards you can draw with them is insane.
Yeah, they're
Very
quite
fun.
good. Silk, it's a good one. It's a callback to the last episode. We talked about her. I think the Web Warriors are really fun. They have some pretty powerful synergies, and there's a lot of stuff they can do. You can slap them on almost any hero just because of Web of Life and Destiny. You know, it's free if you're a Web Warrior, but anybody can play it, and then you're off to the races with them. So,
And that Penny Parker hero is great. I really enjoy that. Building
Yeah.
her kit
Yeah.
out, getting all the upgrades.
She's really fun.
Yeah.
And also very powerful.
Yes.
And drawing cards makes her even better because she has so many resources. You can play your hand basically every turn. So if you just add more cards, it's better.
Yeah, you don't want that 3 hand size to like discourage you, because
No,
it's really bigger than that because you're playing all 3 every time. So.
It's a different game because most heroes, if you have 7 cards or 5 cards, you're only playing like 2. With her, you get to play 3 cards, which is actually more than everyone else gets.
yeah, she's difficult to pilot, so she's not someone I steer new players towards because I do think it can be a little overwhelming to, once you get the basics down, she kind of breaks a lot of those rules, but super fun, super powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
she also does one struggle is that you get through your deck pretty slowly, I will say. So if you're looking for a specific card, it sometimes can get hard to find it.
All right, well, I'll go next, so we'll give our guest the final word in this segment. I've been playing a lot of Rogue recently, and if you clicked on this podcast, you know we're going to talk about one of her cards today. But I ran Rogue through the Next Evolution campaign in solo, and she is really fun. I hadn't really given her much of a chance before that. I don't care much for the character. I'm not a big X-Men fan to begin with, and Rogue doesn't do much for me. But I wanted to play through because she's one I hadn't played a lot, so I built a deck. I took an idea from a Marvel CDB deck that was built around androids, so not playing Vision, but Vision adjacent. It used all of the android allies, so Victor Mancha and Machine Man, and obviously his signature ally, Vivian. You can recur them all with his support, 616 Hickory Branch Lane, if you're playing Vision. So it's not quite as easy to find them when you are Rogue. But once you get them out, you can slap her touched keyword on them, and then you're able to recur events with the card we're going to talk about today, which is really fun. So putting it on Machine Man and then recurring reboot and using her basic thwart or basic attack is really fun.
You can reboot yourself.
Yeah, you can reboot yourself because you become an android. And then because he's a basic ally, you can recur a basic event card with the card we're going to talk about today, Superpower Adaptation. So it was really fun, and she's really good. I think pretty versatile. And, as we've talked about before in the show, that's something I really like about heroes. I really like playing the ones that can do whatever you need them to do in the moment. And she has kind of the same feel that I get from Vision. He's switching his mass form. She's picking up keywords or abilities based on where she puts touch. So you have to kind of think about your turn. And I quite enjoy that. So she went through Next Evolution, I won't say easily on expert mode. I did lose a few times. Juggernaut is real rough. He hits pretty hard. But overall it was really fun.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Rogue as well, which is when, we talked about me coming on. I was like, well, I want to try one of her events to talk about because I had been playing her a bunch. There's a Marvel CDB deck out there called Triple Your Profits by Villain Theory.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a ton of fun. It's way powerful, too. So It's a little unfair to the villains, but
I haven't tried that deck yet, but I've seen it. And actually, Villain Theory is going to be on our next episode.
oh,
So we can ask him about it. But
yeah.
yeah, there's a bunch of cool decks for her. And initially, I was kind of similar to SPDR. I was put off a little bit because it is kind of complex when you first look at her cards. All of her cards have kind of a wall of text,
Yeah.
and picking touched and figuring out where to put it. But it's a fun little puzzle to work through each turn. Verdaen, why don't you tell us what you've been playing recently?
So anyone who's been might listen to the Critical Encounters would know that we've been doing a summer critical challenge OP event. Like we got some organized play cards. So every week, myself and the guys, along with friend of the show, Board Game Lawyer, have been putting out a weekly challenge for everyone. Now, by the time this airs, those challenges are over because it's the fall and summer's done. But I've been playing all of those different scenarios, which were different fill-ins with some sort of tweak to them. Like we played Claw, but we put in, instead of just picking a modular set, we went and found all the biggest beasts we could find, the dragon, the troll, Needhog, those kind of things. And we play with those. So tweaking stuff around, playing with Sandman and the power drain with robots at the beach and like weird things like that. So I've been playing a lot of those things. You can go back and find all our challenges if someone's interested off our Facebook page or Discord. But I like to take the villain after playing it, playing it straight, playing it with the campaign, try a different modular set, then really like, what can I do to mess this up and try something completely unique. So, which since it's a co-op game, you can totally do. So,
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's one of the things that's really cool. I mean, I think it's very modular and you can customize it anyway within the rules. Obviously, some of the stuff you're talking about is outside the
rules,
the official rules, but it still works. And I love that compared to, you talked about Lord of the Rings earlier. I've played a lot of that too. And one of the things I like about this better is that all the scenarios can be mixed and matched, right? In Lord of the Rings, they are what they are. The modular sets that you play with are what they are.
That game sort of tricks you into thinking that it's modular because there are different sets, but the scenario requires those sets, and those sets might get used again in multiple scenarios, but you cannot change those scenarios up. It is a great game.
It is.
But since it's telling a specific story,
Yeah.
you can't really tweak that around at all. So
Yeah,
That's what I was going to say too, because that game's about, you're supposed to go through the story of whatever story they're telling, Lord of the Rings adjacent stuff, that it can't be as alternative. You can't just have Ultron show up randomly.
right.
which I appreciate. I mean, I love the theme and I like that game a lot too. But when I came to this, I then really enjoyed the fact that you could mix it up. If I'm playing Sandman and I like him a lot, I can mix in other modular sets or Crossbones. I can throw in a bunch of other ones and it feels fresh and feels different. So you're never going to get tired of it, which is great.
I agree.
I'll put links down below to all of the stuff you talked about. So the challenges, if people want to look into those later, I will drop links in the show notes and you can check those out.
Awesome.
All right. So we recently started a segment where we take some of the questions that we get. I get a lot of emails and messages, and we try to answer some of those on the show. And today we have a question about solo play. So we all play a bit of solo, and I wanted to answer the question. The question was about how much of a stickler with the rules are we when we play solo? Obviously, following the rules, it's a co-op game, like we said. If you don't want to follow the rules, I guess you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. But the listener specifically wanted to know, how closely do we stick to rules when we're playing? For example, if you're playing a game and you think you're going to win on the next turn and you pull out shadows, do you shuffle in your nemesis set knowing you're going to have to take it all apart in a minute? Technically, you need to. Do you do that? If you draw a card that makes you lose early in the game, do you just ignore it and draw another one because you want to keep playing, or do you shuffle up and start over? I guess stuff like that is kind of what he was asking. So I'll start with you, Verdaen. How much of a stickler are you with the rules when you're playing?
Well, I mean, these heroes should be following the law, right?
You would think.
You would think, yeah. In all my games, solo, 4-player, whatever it is, I try my best to follow the rules. I'm going to shuffle in those cards, even if I think I'm going to win with Shadow of the Past, because maybe I'm going to draw, maybe I have another card, or there's a surge, or, it might make a difference. If I discover I did something wrong, or I messed up a rule, or like, oh, I missed this forced response, I'll do my best to rewind to get it right. Sometimes that's not possible, right? You're like 2 turns in or 3 turns later, and you're like, oh, I totally missed this. So like, I
Yeah.
just can't fix it.
Do you start over at that point, or do you just keep going?
No, I just keep going. It's a solo game. I want to follow the rules, but maybe I just miss it. There are times, however, I see this a lot, and we do this often, where we take a few actions and then a result comes out, and you're like, oh, well, I should have done it this way, and people will back it up 2 moves. And we've talked about it on our show occasionally. In a multiplayer game, sometimes we'll take turns simultaneously. Sometimes we'll allow that backup because we could have figured that math out if we just spent time. But then you're just sitting there calculating, pretending to take the turn, and then you don't. I don't know. There's a little bit of analysis paralysis that could happen, and I don't like that. So I might play a little faster and then back up 1 or 2 steps if it isn't going to impact things. If I have no new information. So if I've got new information, like, oh, I know that's a 3 boost card, I can't take that back. I can't go backwards.
I'm the same way. Like, if you meant to sequence something differently and no new information has come out, I don't care if you want to go back. Once we kind of moved on, you can't take back what you did last turn in the villain phase, like stuff like that. I'm okay. Like, you should have played this card first, whatever, take that back.
I think sometimes some people will say, oh, the game's too easy, but they allow those takebacks. Well, if you think the game's too easy, don't allow yourself to take a step back. Stick with what you've played. Once you've taken your hand off that piece in chess, it's there, right? Once you've taken your hand off the card, it's done. If you find that, things are too easy for you, or you're worried about that. But,
the biggest thing for me that I ignore consistently as a rule is the unique rule. So when I'm playing multiplayer, I play a lot of 3 and 4 player, especially if you go to events where you don't know everybody. If you're playing with like a regular group, it's one thing, but I go meet up with a group of 10 or 12 people consistently. And, if I have a deck that I am excited to play and you have a deck that you're excited to play and we both have the Ironheart ally, I don't really care. Or you also have a Quinn carrier, that doesn't bother me. Go ahead and play your Quinn carrier. I'll play my Quinn carrier. Because what I ultimately want to do is have fun. And, if you have a Quinn carrier and that's part of your deck, and then if you don't have it, it's kind of messed up your economy, then you don't play the deck you really wanted to play, then it defeats the whole purpose of coming out. So the unique rules, stuff like that, I play pretty loose with that. I don't usually play with the same hero. Like, if I'm playing the Ironheart hero, I don't want someone else to also play the Ironheart hero. But if I am playing them and you play the Ironheart ally, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you're going out and you're meeting up with people, it is tough to coordinate. So those seem fine. We used to do that in Lord of the Rings too. That's not Arwen, it's Barwin. Changes the spelling.
Yeah.
Multiverse rules, right? You get away with it in Marvel Champions. So
it's a multiverse rule.
Yeah. Now, both people playing Hulk, that's a different story. Like the Hulk hero, unless you say, okay, we're all going to bring a Hulk deck, and that's what this game is about, right?
Oh, that's the bit.
Yeah,
that sounds like fun.
Gimmick. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I think that's where you draw the line. But other than that, uniqueness can be kind of swept to the side most of the time, just to improve the game.
A lot of times if you have those allies, I have Ironheart ally, you have Ironheart ally, just mine's going to die in a round or 2 anyways, right? I'll just hang on a second.
Yeah, so. It doesn't bother me. If I'm playing with myself, I don't know, like ultimately the multiverse rule is the one I think I most consistently bend or don't mind. But most of the other rules, I really try my best to follow as best I can, because that's part of the fun for me is like I'm playing a game and games have rules. If I'm not following the rules, then I'm not really playing the game. And that's not judging anybody else. If you want to fudge things, it's up to you, I guess. It's your game.
You're not putting 5 Ironheart allies in your deck.
Right. No, I'm not doing that. There aren't even 5 that they've published.
I wish.
Right.
But it's not a competitive game, right? Like, if we're playing a competitive game and you have an advantage from something, then it's a totally different story. But I don't mind it. All right. Well, thanks for asking the question, and thank you both for helping me answer. That was from Solo Papa on Discord. So thanks for sending your question in. I remembered to give you a shout out this time, so you're welcome.
Perfect. I do just want to say, Solo Papa, that I have never once in my entire life played a solo game of Marvel Champions, and I don't ever plan to, so take everything I said with a grain of salt.
There you go, with a whole spoonful of salt.
Yeah.
Or not at all. You can take everything I say at face value if you want to.
It's a
I don't
co-op game. Do you use salt or
It's a
don't
co-op game.
use
You can do
salt?
whatever
It's
you
up
want
to you.
It's up to you.
All right, today's card that we're going to talk about is Superpower Adaptation. Verdaen is the one who brought the card with him to talk about. This was his choice. So if you don't mind, Verdaen, would you read the card for us and introduce it?
Superpower Adaptation is a hero-specific card out of the Rogue hero set. It is a zero-cost event with the Superpower trait, and it says Hero Action. If touch is attached to a friendly character, search its owner's discard pile for an event that belongs to the same classification as that character. Identity specific, aspect, or basic. And then it has a little arrow and it says add that event to your hand, and it has a mental resource on the card.
Yeah, so this is one of those cards that I think requires another card to fully understand. So just I'll briefly read the touched upgrade. So anyone who's not familiar with Rogue or hasn't played her or is new to the game, Rogue has an upgrade that has a dash for the cost. It's called touched, and it's a condition. And it reads, if touched is attached to a minion, Rogue's attacks gain overkill. If it's attached to a villain, Rogue gains retaliate 1. If it's attached to an ally, Rogue gains the aerial trait. And if attached to a hero, Rogue gains stalwart. She also gains all of the traits that whoever it's attached to has. So if it's attached to a minion, she might gain brute or elite. And if it's attached to an ally, she might gain android or champion
Aerial
or
whatever.
Yeah. So just for understanding this card that we're talking about, I think it's important to just mention touched in case you haven't played Rogue.
Yeah, and the Rogue hero, once per turn, you get to move the touched onto something. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
And I think it
Um,
unattaches at the end of the round.
at the beginning of your turn, it unattaches, or at the end of the round.
It's must
Yeah.
be
Exactly.
end of the round.
it's after the player phase begins.
player phase begins
Okay.
because
because
you
it's out there
retaliate.
during the villain phase so that you
Yes.
can use that retaliate.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
automatically removes itself every time you have to play it out once per round. So she's kind of a complicated hero, and you have to figure out that touched mechanic.
Mhm.
But we are here to talk about Superpower Adaptation. So let's first of all talk about the art on this card. What do you guys think about the art?
It's fine. I mean,
I think it's good.
yeah, it shows her with some other people's powers. It looks like maybe she's got Colossus's ability right now.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think she's
yeah,
got
I
like
think.
metal skin. I think
Yep.
I think it's the point across. Kind of understand what she can do, where this is coming from. It's not my favorite art, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't love it, but I also don't dislike it. It just seems like you guys already said, it's Rogue clearly, but also clearly has Colossus's skin, so you get the idea of what's
Mhm.
happening. I think if you're even a little bit familiar with the X-Men, you'll understand who Rogue is, and I think her powers are fairly well known. She's not like an obscure X-Men character.
No. And it has an art credit. So this is art they commissioned. And 2 names on there. And these people also did the Gambit's staff art and Sinister Synchronization, which is the main scheme for the Sinister Six scenario. So you can see their art style in those cards too.
Yeah, this is commissioned. I think we have had a lot of art that's from... I think most of our art has been from comics, not from commissions so far that we've talked about.
Yeah, just by chance.
Yeah, totally accidentally. But it's fine. It does the job. I think the face in the corner, which is one of my nitpicks always, is kind of weird. I don't love this one, but
It's
Yeah.
fine.
they're hit or miss
And,
for me, to be honest.
Those names, by the way, are V. D'Ambrosio and J. Mena Guerrero. Just to
Yeah.
plug our friends. We know
Hopefully
them
we
personally.
said that right. Good job on the art, guys and girls, or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't have any flavor text, which is kind of disappointing. I do like flavor text.
There's
Few
no
of Rogue's
room.
cards do.
Yeah,
Rogues
there's a lot of
cards
words.
have too many words on them. They do too many things. But, they also do a lot of things, which is kind of fun. So this
I
one
do
lets
like
you...
her color scheme. Sorry to interrupt there,
Yes.
Titan. I like
She
the
has a nice
green and
color
the red
scheme.
and the yellow. That's good.
This card lets you play... The most important thing that I think this card lets you do is play cards from other people's hero-specific sets. Which
Yes.
nothing else can do. And that's a unique thing that we've seen. It also does other things, which are quite good. It lets you get back your own events. You can get a rogue event back if you just touch your own rogue hero, or if you have an ally and you go for... If you have like an android, or not, it's not based on traits. If you have a basic ally, you can go grab your basic or whatever. Or if you're playing a protection deck, you can go get your defense cards back. But I think the most exciting thing to do is put it on someone else's hero and steal their cards, because that's fun.
But it's not just their identity-specific cards. It's any card they own as part of their deck you can search from their discard pile.
No,
Yes.
it has to be the same classification as that character.
Correct. But you could choose
So-
an aspect card that they are
Right. So if they
have in
put
their
out
deck.
a leadership ally and you're not playing leadership, you can attach it to that ally, like say Beast, and then you could go into their deck and pull out their my X-Men, right? Or
It's only discard pile.
Yes.
yeah, and
But
and
you
to,
can go.
to correct something, you cannot attach it to Rogue. Rogue's
you
ability she can only touch someone else, because the theme here is she's sucking up someone else's power. That's her mutant ability is to steal someone else's power. So you can't attach it to Rogue. So the only way to go back and get Rogue cards is to attach it to her signature ally Gambit.
Yes. Yeah. Her hero card does say attached touched to another character. So
Okay. But you can steal other events. So if you want to play Captain America's shield block and have it do nothing, you can do that. If you want to play a more useful card like Backflip, you can do that, which is a fun thing that no one else can do.
Right.
Yeah. Flavorful.
And sometimes it whiffs, right? Like you just said, Captain America's shield block won't work because you can't exhaust his shield. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, that's a bad choice if you're making that choice.
If you're making that choice, don't pick that.
Don't do that. Yeah. It has some interesting deck building implications, because there are 3 superpower adaptations in your deck, and you can effectively count those as 3 of whatever key event you want to build your deck around. As long as you can attach it to somebody. Like, I really enjoy putting it on Gambit, because you can go back and get that going Rogue card, which can remove 5 threat. You get Southern Cross, which can do 8 damage. The Energy Transference, which lets you heal her and deal damage, and then move the touched off of Gambit onto someone else. So that's a neat one to pull back. Or like you're going to set up a defensive round, okay, I'm going to Juggernaut's coming at me this round. I can take my turn, use Superpower Adaptation to go fetch my Bulletproof Bell. I now can just completely negate the damage she's doing at me and gain a tough. So as long as you have Gambit out, so I feel like she's got to sort of keep Gambit on the table. It's one of those allies you don't want to use up.
Yeah, Gambit's really valuable because of everything you just said. And her defense card is insane. Bulletproof Bell is great.
Does Gambit have aerial?
It doesn't matter, because if you put it on an ally, she automatically gets aerial.
She gains it by touching an ally.
The touched card itself gives her aerial on any ally.
Yeah,
that makes me want to get Dive Bomb back.
Yep.
That's what that makes me want to do, is get Dive Bomb back every turn, have 6 copies of Dive Bomb, and just do that every turn.
Right. So you have to attach it to
awesome.
An aggression ally, which, there's plenty of them. And there's some good traits on aggression allies.
Yeah, you can get Asgard with Throg.
Avenger, Guardian, Mystic.
So that I have played Rogue one time, and I tried to get Mystic and get the Sorcerer Supreme out.
Yep.
It was not the best way to build a deck. That was like launch day. I was like, oh, I'll just do it. And it could be cool, I think. I think you could make it work.
Yeah, I think with aggression, too, the neat thing, right, you can go fetch more drop kicks if you want to do stunning, but you can use it to go fetch a card that will help you thwart, because if you need that, aggression's kind of low on that, so you don't have to build a ton of thwart cards. Like, you don't have to put Looking for Trouble or I forget the one, like after you defeat a minion, you get to chase them down.
Is it chase them down?
Chase them down.
Chase them down. So you could put 1 or 2 of those in your deck and then use this. They'll go fetch them when it's necessary. You don't have to hold on to those cards, or the timing doesn't have to be perfectly there for you. So
that's a very interesting way of using that, because as I said earlier, I've never played solo, so I've just never put really thwart cards in my aggression decks. Most of the time when I play with other people, I just do the damage.
Oh, right.
So it's interesting to think about using that as a way to thwart more. That's a fun way of using that.
Or do anything. You can use it to do damage in Justice decks, but I think the cool thing is back out. You just have 3 extra copies of whatever event you really want to use. Maybe it's Make the Call, or it's Drop Kick, or Stealth Strike,
That's
whatever
just 3
you want to
copies
use.
of your best event.
Let's think of Justice cards here, right? There's a lot of good Justice allies that have Shield trait, Psionic, or Web Warrior. So you can make her a Web Warrior, and you can play with all those spiders that you like.
That was one that I considered.
Yeah, and then you can go fetch any justice card, right? Clear the area for justice, crisis averted, whatever you might be playing. But you can also build a shield deck with her with all the global logistics and homeland intervention.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that one way or another. You can go fetch that back and forth when you need it, or stealth strike, which is something we'll talk about later in the show.
If you play Web Warriors, a lot of them are basic, which means you can get the Across the Spider-Verse card, which lets you pull the Web Warriors out of your discard pile, which means you can have kind of a crazy recursion loop going of using them to get themselves back, to get the event back, to do it again.
Basic surprisingly has a lot of great cards for her. Like you can slap it on somebody that has champions, and now she can play Go for Champions.
Yeah,
Or Champions
so
Mode
on someone
Bunker.
with no, it's only events, I think.
Oh, it's only events.
Only events, yeah. But Across the
If
Spider-Verse,
you-
like you said.
Across the Spider-Verse, if you hit an Asgard ally, you can get godlike stamina,
Mm-hmm.
which is a great one.
You can also do you can go fetch a meditation with it, flip down, and then there's 3 resources to bring out some big expensive card. Because
Yep.
Superpower Adaptation puts that card in your hand, and you can hold on to it. You don't have to play it right away. You don't have to discard it. You can keep it for the villain phase. You can keep it for next turn, that sort of thing. You can also kind of grief your buddies if you're playing and be like, I'm going to take your shield block, knowing that that's the card you want when you're about to recycle your deck. Or you could do something silly like that too, right? I'm always thinking villainous ideas. But
Of course, always gotta troll your friends.
When I was playing Rogue recently, I recurred Reboot a lot with, Machine Man. I would just drop it on Machine Man, and then I would just recur Reboot. And then because she's an android now, I can reboot her. So that was really fun. But it does come with some risk, not necessarily this card, but Touched, because her obligation is potentially deadly. I remember the very first time I played with Rogue, a teammate of mine was playing Rogue and touched me, and that came out, and I was low health, and it killed me. So
Yeah,
her
I was
obligation
there
does
for that
damage
game.
to you.
It was crazy.
I was at like 1 health or 2 with Nova, and
I think you were
touched
exactly
me.
2. It
and
touched
then-
Nova and then killed you accidentally.
And it was the first day Rogue was out. I didn't even know what that did, like her obligation. I was like, oh, you're dead. I'm like, okay. That was fun.
Cool.
Villainous. So it's
Yeah.
on brand
yeah,
with
that's
you.
great.
Yeah, it's really fun. So, but this card, it is really cool. I really like that they leaned into this with her. The Touched is cool on its own, but the fact that you can interact with other players' discard piles and other players' cards, nobody else can do that. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and it really improves the more players you have. 'Cause
Yeah.
you just end up with more targets, right? You can fetch something that the group needs. You can work together at deck building. Now, it's not as great, say, a pickup game, but if you're playing a 4-player campaign with people and be like, oh, I'm going to put this one event card in. It's going to be good for me, and it's going to be good for Rogue, right? You can sort of like build that way a little bit.
Yeah, you can sort of build around Rogue, which is again another thing you have to consider. Which so it does make it more complex, but also it adds more depth and more power to your decks to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we talked about the art. We talked about the theme just a lot right now. And I think thematically for me, this card is spot on. It really hits the theme of you feel like Rogue, right? You're touching somebody else and taking their cards to use for yourself. That's such a cool theme. So 10 out of 10 on theme for me. Like it really nails it.
I will say I don't know a lot about Rogue. I just kind of know about her sort of generally. I thought that when she took someone's power, she like maybe killed them or like it hurt them a lot.
It does hurt them. Yep.
Okay.
Which is
'Cause
why her obligation does what it does.
Her obligation does, but obviously your hero cards can't all be killing your friends.
Right.
So I understand why
No.
they didn't do that, but that I think that'll lose a theme point for me. Just let me kill my friends.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm all for that. Take those
I'm going to
heroes
send
out.
you over to Critical Encounters. You sound like you belong with the villains.
I have always sided with the villains, and I
Yeah.
always will.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
All right. Enough of that.
Look
you
at this
two.
hero lover here.
In terms of power, how do we feel about the power of this card?
I think it's pretty good
I think
because
it's
of
very
the
good.
options that it gives you in both deck building and in gameplay. The versatility, I think, in this kind of game, it lets you adjust for what you need, right? So if you're looking for more attack, you can go fetch it. If you're looking for more thwart, you can go fetch it. If you need a card that lets you go back and get an ally with a make the call or something, bam, there it is, right? It's just 3 of whatever it is you need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
possibly
think
one of the most versatile cards ever.
It's
of
up
just how many
there.
things you can do with it.
It's almost like we talked about. It almost lets you break the deck building rules. Like it's not quite Spider Woman, right? But it almost feels to me. I kind of feel like Gamora. Like I've got 3 events that are kind of out of aspect, or they could be out of aspect, and
Or
so
even other hero cards, which is
Yeah.
also never been done.
So let's look at one of the X-Men heroes that this works great with. And you wouldn't necessarily think it. You think, oh, if you know anything about Rogue, her and Gambit are like chummy, let's say. And he doesn't really work with her at all because his hero requires you to discard tokens and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
his cards don't work.
Colossus is great teamed up with Rogue because she can get tough off a Bulletproof Bell or other cards maybe if you're flipping. She could then go touch Colossus and pull a Made of Rage out for +6 with Overkill. She could use Steel Fist, so she could do 5 damage and a stun and confused. Bulletproof Bell will also work with his armor up, so she could flip down to Alter Ego, do whatever she needs to do there, armor back up when it's the villain phase, and flip back so you don't add any of that threat.
That sounds fun. I love armor up as a card. I think that's one of my favorites.
But you could also, I mean, for me, I think about Cyclops, right? You could use, I forget the name of it, but it's the one that removes thwart and then pulls a tactic out of your tactical brilliance. So you could use that to pull a tactic. You could pull rapid response or whatever out of your own deck
or
if you're
his
playing Rogue
1
leadership.
for 11.
Well, that doesn't work because you have to use his blast, and you don't control him, so you can't really do it.
Oh, I thought it was just
you have to use
on someone with a target. Oh, it just does +8. Oh,
yes.
That's right. That's right.
Just adds to that.
Lame.
The tactical brilliance is probably the best because here's a pop quiz for you. It's something we do on our show. Can you guys guess how many non-hero specific tactic cards there are that you could build your deck with if you're going to go and use this with Cyclops?
Tactic cards? Because Tactical Brilliance gets you any card, not upgrades like Cyclops.
Oh, well, I think we're talking
any tactic.
Tactic event,
it's any tactic.
Right? Oh boy.
Well, yeah,
so
tactic.
He gets you upgrades, but that card specifically gets you any tactic.
Correct.
And
there's a ton.
There's a ton. I bet there's probably 100 tactics.
Oh,
that's probably not that many.
That's not quite. 35.
Okay, I was going to say like
so
20
close.
to 30.
I said 36.
So,
but
yeah,
more
you were
than
right
you would
there.
think.
Perfect.
That's right.
Yeah. The other one I really like for heroes, and just staying within the X-Men, because you could theorize all day long, is Storm. It requires a little bit of teamwork with Storm so that her Storm is in the right place. But you can go fetch like Lightning Bolt, which could do 8 damage plus 2 more. You could go fetch your Blast of Wind, which you could do 3 damage to everything engaged with one player. Flash Freeze, which would prevent all damage, right? So Rogue can just tank because you can hold on to those cards and wait for Rogue to do her flip or flip, because you can take actions out of turn, and these are all events, so you can do all of this stuff on somebody else's turn.
And with the multiplayer nature of the X-Men, right, you could take Storm's Lightning Bolt or Lightning Blast or whatever it's called, and you could use someone else's X-Jet to help pay for that. You know, you can really share the table. I think the X-Men are the most kind of like shared resource pool, which I think is really fun. So, but the theme of like taking Storm's event to play it and then using, Cyclops' X-Jet to pay for it to do all these things. That feels really thematic.
Steal Wolverine's regenerative healing card so that she can heal. You don't have to flip down.
I think.
Yeah.
Or his track by scent.
Yep, it's a good one.
Great. That's a great card. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw this card was stealing that, because that was just so novel. But I think that it might actually be better to get an aspect card, because that's so much consistency. I guess it depends on what you need. That's the way I would. That's the way I would. I think most often play it is I would build my deck around an event and then just have 3 extra copies of it, so that I could play my repurposes more or my dive bombs or whatever I'm looking for.
Yeah, it takes a little coordination in a multiplayer group to know that you're going to steal Colossus's Made of Rage, right? Like,
because then you have to get a tough card, then steal his card.
But you're building your own leadership deck, and you know that you want to play Save the Day a whole bunch. So now this does save the day for you because you have the leadership allies. You can go fetch your leadership card. You just killed off an ally with the previous save the day. You can get another one out, go do it again, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You have a really expensive ally in your hand. You can go grab sneak attack and throw it in.
Yep.
I think, one of the things I really like about Rogue, it's the same thing I like about Vision, is just the versatility. So like turn to turn, whatever you need, you can decide at the moment, like I need thwarting, I need damage, I need an ally back or whatever, and you could use that. I think you talked before, Lazy Titan, that's not usually the way you build decks. You build decks
not
to kind of, you almost script it, and then you just run the script.
I I like to optimize my decks to do one thing as best I possibly can and follow the sort of script I've laid out for it. I like to do most of my planning in the deck building phase. I sometimes will switch it up, but that's usually the way I play.
That's where playing solo, if you were to play a solo game, you'll find, I can't follow my script anymore because nobody else is thwarting for me. Nobody else is removing this for me. Yeah.
That's why I don't. Well, that's not the only reason I don't play solo, but it's just I've thought about it, and the way I build decks is normally that I can do one thing, and sometimes another thing depending on the hero I pick. My versatility really depends on if the hero I picked has hero cards that are versatile. Mm-hmm. So if I play someone like Rogue and I play Aggression, I can do some thwarting because she has some thwart events. Mm-hmm. But if I play someone like Drax and I play Aggression or Protection, that's just not happening.
Right.
So it's really just 50-50 if I pick a hero who can thwart.
That's why you got to get back on the Vision train, man. Vision can do it all.
No way, dude. I would much. That's why even when I was talking about this extremely versatile Rogue card, who's also very versatile, I said, hey, I would use it to play the same card over and over again.
Yeah.
I would play Dive Bomb 6 times. That's just the way I do it, man.
Dive Bomb, yeah. With Home Technique out there, it could be pretty crazy. But
repurpose.
Yeah, Agile Flight if you were threading. Yep.
Yeah, Agile Flight because you can get Aerial because it's on an ally.
I used it for Ever Vigilant when I played through the campaign. I was recurring Ever Vigilant a lot just to ready her because she, depending on what she's touching, she has 3 attack or 3 thwart once you get her jacket out. So being able to ready her is really great. That's what I was leaning into. But all right, so then I think we've covered the power and the fun. Let's see if we can come together with a final score. And Verdaen, I'll let you start. When we give final scores, 5 is right in the middle. True neutral, it's not an F. It just means you're right in the middle. 1 to 10. How would you score this card?
Well, I'm not going to bring a dud on, so I think this is a 10, honestly.
No,
and I don't know if you've scored anything at 10 yet, but it's any card I want it to be almost. It's a lot of fun. I think the theme hits. It's perfect for Rogue's theme. It's powerful. You can make it what you want to make it. The art's, it looks like a comic book piece of art, which is, I'm playing a comic book game. That's what I want. So I'm going to give it a 10.
First appearance,
comes on the
10
podcast,
out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Heat.
That's right.
Lazy Titan, how would you rate this card?
I think I would agree. I am maybe not quite as enthusiastic on it because I haven't played as much Rogue. I've played maybe 1 or 2 games with Rogue, but looking at this card, it seems really good. It's free, which means that you don't go down anything. It's just a free thing you can do. And also, it adds both consistency and versatility to your deck at the same time, which is a very small amount of cards that you can even design to be able to do that. So I think that's very interesting. It also is a mechanic that we've never seen before, just playing someone else's cards, which is very unique and a lot of things you have to think through.
Yeah.
I think I'll score this a 9. It loses a point on theme for me because it doesn't deal 3 damage to the person I choose. But other than that, I think it's perfect.
I agree with Verdaen. I'm going to come in with a 10 out of 10 on this one.
Woo, all right.
I was leaning towards like a 9, but after we talked through it again, I think it's a 10. It reminds me a lot of, I'm a broken record. It reminds me a lot of the Solar Blast or Solar Beam because it's whatever you need it to be in the moment, and that's what this makes me think of. It's whatever I need in the moment. I can go get that card, whether it's my own card or someone else's card, and that kind of versatility and turn-to-turn decision-making is what I really enjoy about the game. I think the theme is on point. It's fun. It's powerful. It's not overpowered. It does require some planning, and if you're playing a solo game and you just shuffled up, it's kind of a dead card, but that doesn't happen all that often. 10 out of 10 for me.
It's also, I will say, just better than Solar Beam because it's also Solar Beam, if you want it to be.
That's true.
It's just better.
Yeah,
not to bring everything back to Vision.
Strictly
I'm never
better.
disappointed to draw this card. I'm like, ooh, what can I do now?
No, the only thing I can see this being a downside really is that you might get analysis paralysis every time you draw this card, especially if you draw 2. And then you're just like, what am I doing
in
here?
A 4-player game, I could see you like, okay, now what do you have in your discard pile? What do you have in your discard pile? That could take a while. Yeah, but that's
bounty
fun,
of
though.
choices. Yeah.
As far as the power of this card and the fun of it, it's incredible.
Yeah. One thing we didn't even mention is it could change your mulligan because it's coming up, so you can discard a bunch of those big events you want because you'll get them later.
Yeah, or spend them, right?
Yeah,
because it's fine.
Spend them because it's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think after going through it one more time, I'm going to amend myself to a 10.
Woo!
I think we're going to give this a perfect score.
Perfect.
10s across the board. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if we've had 10s across the board yet. Kaeko is usually a little lower, but I hope he's learning his lesson back at your lair, and he'll come back with his head on
We'll whip
right.
him into shape. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking
Once he's
about.
done cleaning up all that Garm hair.
Probably what I should have done since, we're not supposed to like the heroes. I probably should have rated it a 1, but okay,
0 out of 10.
0.
It's a hero card.
Don't ever use it. Never use it.
It's a 10 because you're stealing from heroes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
So
Well-
that's
Theme hit.
just trying to take away from the heroes.
So we should say quickly, if anybody doesn't know about Critical Encounters podcast, why don't you give us a quick kind of roundup? What is the conceit
Sure.
of your podcast? We've talked about villains a lot, but tell us about your podcast.
Right. So Critical Encounters is a podcast about the villains. We look at the encounter sets, the villains. We are the villains, right? Quote unquote, so-called villains. So we're going to give you all the lore about the minions and the villains. We usually get it right. Not always. Then we're going to talk about, we go through every single modular set. You guys talk about one card at a time. We talk about one modular set at a time. And we're looking at that as if you're playing the game from the villain side. So we're really focused on the encounter sets. We don't like those heroes. That's our whole shtick. And we, at the time of this recording, we have like 180 some episodes, 83 episodes, something like that. So you can find us. You just search Critical Encounters Podcast, Marvel Champions. You're going to find us on YouTube. You're going to find us on every podcatcher that's out there. We also have some interrogation rooms. We're doing interviews with the developers and other folks at FFG, and we usually have a guest come on and talk about a Nemesis set, and occasionally we'll do a secret dossier where we'll talk about the heroes of something we're interested in, just to change it up a little bit. But
I will leave a link in the description, in the show notes, to find your podcast. Like you said, it's easy to search. You could Google it, but I'll put a link down below for anybody who wants to hear that. It's great. I really love how you guys lean into that theme. You've started with the villain thing. Not a lot of podcasts are talking about the villains. I think it's a cool thing to focus on. And, how you guys talk about the secret dossiers when you're talking about heroes, and the interrogation room when you're talking about interviews. Like, I just love how you guys phrase everything and really lean into that theme. If anybody hasn't listened to the podcast,
it's
please
super fun.
give it a listen.
I
Thank
have
you.
always been the guy who sides with the villains, and that immediately caught my eye.
and we've been around now, like I said, 100 and some issues. We're going to be at 200 pretty soon here. So like 4 years. And when we started, there was like 10 podcasts about Marvel Champions, right? I don't know if you guys listened. There's so many shows.
There were.
And we're trying to find, what's an untapped piece of this game, and nobody's talking about the encounter cards. So let's give them some love. So there we
A
are.
lot of those podcasts have fallen off over the years. Not
Correct.
many are left anymore. But
Yeah.
how often do you guys publish episodes?
We have a weekly release schedule every single Tuesday for 4
Every
years.
single Tuesday. We are every other Tuesday, and we've only been going for a few months. So we're the new kid on the block. But
Almost as long.
Yeah, what's with this Tuesday thing? You trying to steal our slot? Huh?
I didn't realize you guys were Tuesdays when I started. That's
Tuesday
That's
it
when
just
our
kind of feels like a podcast day.
It's a good day.
You know?
Yeah, it's a good day.
It just feels like a podcast day.
it's an ode to my first Marvel Champions in-person group. We always met on Tuesdays, so every other Tuesday we met. That's just I kept that as a nod to them because I couldn't think of another day.
nice.
So we have one more thing we really want to cover today. You have brought some illicit gains, some bounty.
Ill-gotten.
I'm not going to ask where you got it from. I know you're
Not
the
important at
villains.
this moment.
I don't want to know. The less I know, the better.
Well, we were
But-
breaking stuff and taking stuff, and
You're like
I
Rhino.
heard Rhino was doing that.
yeah, and what it is we have some alt art hero cards that we can't keep in the lair because they're heroes, so we got to get rid of them.
Gross.
And there's some fun events here that you could use with Superpower Adaptation when you build a deck. So these are the alternate art cards that I think they're like wave 1 and 2. It's Black Widow, Miss Marvel, Thor, Get Over Here, Stealth Strike, and Tackle. So it's a full play set of the alt arts for you guys to give away to your listeners from our layer to yours.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
I will put in the description a Google form. So if you click that link, and then we'll share the link other places as well. Thanks to Critical Encounters for providing the alt art cards. I'll have
Yeah,
some
thank you to
questions
them.
in there. All you have to do is fill it out and submit it, and then we will choose a winner and get that sent out to you. And I'll have if you don't remember everything Verdaen just said, I will put a list or an image in the description so you can see all the cards that we have. So all you got to do is click the link, fill out the quick form. I'll have a few questions on there, and then we'll send you a set of cards, and hopefully you enjoy them and play them in good health. Once again, before we sign off, if you like the podcast, please share it with a friend who also might like the podcast, and please leave a rating and a review. It only takes a minute. Whatever platform you're listening on, or Apple Podcasts is great. It does help us get seen. And we thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy it. Verdaen from Critical Encounters Podcast, thank you for joining us. It was great to have you on, and we would like to do it again sometime.
Oh, I'll be happy to come back. We always say in our show, if you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, tell your enemies. Tell people about this show if you're listening to it. It's a good show.
Yeah, thank you. And your show is great. I have never seen a more wretched hive of scum and villainy than your show. Thanks for doing it. I hope you guys keep publishing. I'm looking forward to that big push to episode 200. That'll be fun. And everybody who's listening, thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you next time. Goodbye.
See ya.
Bye.